Nintendo has just released its first look at the brand new Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in the most recent Nintendo Direct. With all the hype surrounding the new entry to the series, I wanted to slow down and take a closer look at exactly what we got in this trailer. That being said, there will be spoilers for Xenoblade 1 and 2 if you've not already played those games. Alright, so the trailer starts with the new protagonist Noah, who's playing his flute. In an interview with the game's director, he states that the flute will play an integral role to the game, but that they're not quite ready to share with us what that is just yet. That being said, the flute appears multiple times in this trailer and gives off a very distinct, serene feeling amidst the fighting that appears. Speaking of which, the next scene that plays shows an expansive war being fought, which is very, very reminiscent of the opening cutscene to Xenoblade 1's Battle of Sword Valley. As the shot pans up, we can clearly see what appears to be a faced Mechon, and what's interesting is the fact that unlike Xenoblade 1, we can now see that they're fighting alongside the humans in black armor below. These humans were confirmed in an official Nintendo Twitter thread as Keves. The post says, Keves is a nation where mechanical technology was developed. Its forces are mainly composed of combat vehicles and small mobile weapons operated by people riding them. If they're clothed in black and have a mech style, then they're Keves. After the scene switches again, we hear Noah say the name of the new world that they inhabit, Aionios. It was also confirmed that this new world is a combination of both the Titans Mechonis and Bionis from Xenoblade 1, as well as the Titans from Xenoblade 2 like Gormott, Uriah, Moradane, and Tantal. This clip is also our first look at the new Monado. To me, it looks like a mix of Numa's blade and the original Xenoblade 1 Monado, and what's more, there's a distinct half-blue circle inside, but that'll be important in a second. Next, we get to see another one of the main cast members, this time being Mio. Now, Mio is dressed mostly in white, opposed to Noah dressed mostly in black. Brought out on the same Twitter thread earlier, Agnus is a nation strong in ether, a magical technology. Their forces are made up of units specialized in ether combat, and they fight with small, mobile, autonomous weapons. If they're clad in white and are proficient in ether combat, then they're Agnus. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Mio is part of the Agnus. She also looks very similar to Nia from Xenoblade 2 in both looks and voice. At the end of the trailer, we also get to see Nia, so could she be a direct descendant of hers? Potentially. She also uses twin rings to fight in battle similar to Nia, and if you notice, we look at her rings, it's the exact opposite of Noah's, a half-green circle inside. This trend continues throughout the trailer, where we can see the Keves technology in weapons with the blue half rings, and the Agnus technology in weapons with the green half rings. Next, as we see the battle continue, we see two more main characters step up to support their respective sides. First is Lance, another Keves member. Some have speculated that Lance may be part Machina since he has the two-toned gray skin similar to the race of Machina that we saw in Xenoblade 1. However, he does look a bit more human than most Machina we saw in that game, so it could be that the Machina have just evolved over time, or could just be a mix of Machina and human or Homs. Directly attacking him, we see the next party member, Senna, who definitely appears to be a shield hammer type blade. Not only does she carry a giant shield hammer, but she also has a core crystal and ether lines running down her body as well. Her hair is also very similar to Bridget's hair from Xenoblade 2. Are they somehow related? Perhaps. In the next shot, we briefly see a very bulky looking guy who looks a lot like Van Damme, complete with giant X facial scar and pompadour hair. But what if it's actually Zeke, much later on in the future? Not only is he wearing a left-sided eye patch, but if we zoom in on it, it does appear to have the same symbol as the one we see Zeke wear. And the hair color seems to match, and due to the implanted core crystal, Zeke could potentially survive much longer than normal humans due to the fact that he is a Blade Eater, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Next, we cut back to the group of Keves together playing flutes, and then the trailer shows Noah and Mio playing their flutes together, now having made up after their battle earlier. What's interesting is the fact that Noah is playing a white flute and Mio is playing a black flute that we saw at the very beginning. And in the very next scene, we see them exchanging said flutes with each other. Afterwards, the trailer goes back to the earlier battle and shows off another party member, this time named Uni. She is part Aionios, shown off by the pair of wings on her head, and potentially a descendant of either Melia or Fiora? I'm not sure, but she definitely resembles both of them. She's also a Keves, and explained in the interview that she's a childhood friend of both Noah and Lance. After that, we see the last of the 6 main party characters introduced, another Agnus member known as Teon, who appears to attack using some form of origami birds? This is the character I definitely have the hardest time figuring out. He looks similar to Agnus from Xenoblade 2, but maybe it's just the messy hair and glasses? Agnus is dead after all. I don't know. So now that we get to see the main party members, the trailer shifts to show us more of the environment. We can see Noah running around an open field in the previous games, this area looking very similar to Gour Plains. In the next scene, we see him running across a bridge, and in the background, there appears to be the Titan Uriah. We can also see in the right there what looks like a collection point, so it's good to know those are back. Time to fill out your Collectopedias. In the next scene, we see the remains of the Mechonis sword. Notice how it's stuck completely vertical in the ground? Well, in the next scene, we see Mio running through an area that looks very similar to Sword Valley. But how is that the case if it's stuck in the ground completely vertical? Well, it's possible this is later in the game after it's fallen over, or it could just be a different place altogether. Perhaps Moradane or another area that has a very similar rocky desert feel to it. We also get to see Lands running through the same area, this time with a giant Mechon in the background. Next, we see Senna in what appears to be Agniratha, the Mechon capital, or in any case, a place that heavily implemented Mechana technology. Contrast that to the next shot, where we get to see Uni in a place that reminds me of Gormat, sitting next to a giant mech that looks heavily inspired by Hyentia technology. And then Teon, next to another mech with a similar Hyentia feeling, this time looking like Colony 6's old ether mine. Notice they still have the green half rings? Next we see Mio on a grind rail moving across the sky between floating platforms. I'm not actually sure where this is, but it might be in a new place altogether. Let me know if you have any ideas in the comments below. At least for the next area I'm pretty sure of. It shows the party all together this time in what looks like Magna Forest, complete with jungle quadwing and everything. And then it's onto the beach of either Earthsea or, more likely, Leftherian Archipelago. We also see that you can still swim in this game and potentially dive? Maybe that's just part of the new swimming animation, but it would be cool if you got some new form of underwater exploration or combat. And beyond just swimming, now it appears you can also use vehicles to help move around the map, just like we see here with this boat. One of my small complaints with the series was due to the size of some of the maps, it would have been nice to be able to drive vehicles around, making it faster to get to some areas where there wasn't a fast travel point to skip to. Poor Juju. If only he hadn't crashed his buggy, maybe we could have. Next we see that same Mechon from the shot earlier with Lands, this time ready to fire off a giant laser blast. And with that, we make it back to the earlier battle that shows all the main characters fighting again. Then a shot of Uni and Teon working together, and then Bob Ross Nopon. Just kidding, but not gonna lie, that does kind of look goofy on him. Either way, it's good to see Nopon back in this game. Then we get to see some footage of the group talking, and Noah and Mio face off against the mech we saw earlier in Gormat. Then, one of the coolest moments in the entire trailer, we get to see both Melia and Nia back to back. Melia goes back to wearing a similar face mask that she did in Xenoblade 1, and Nia with an all-new face mask. That being said, the voices are pretty obvious, and I would bet that this is definitely them, especially since we know that they both live much longer than a normal human would. Something else interesting in this scene was that during this part, we hear Melia speak of Ouroboros. Ouroboros is a snake that eats its own tail in Greek mythology, the idea being that it's supposed to represent a constant cycle of death and rebirth, a theme that has been very present in the series as a whole. We see that many of the blade weapons also contain a small Ouroboros in the middle of it when we look at the official art. However, in-game, they're replaced with those blue and green half rings that we were talking about earlier. What could it all mean? Anyways, going back to Melia and Nia, it's clear that Melia is definitely part of the Keves, and Nia is definitely part of the Agnus. However, it's the Agnus that used the ether-based Hyentia technology, not the Keves. And it's the Keves that have embraced the Mechana technology for their side. I wonder what made the Hyentia give up their technology to the other side. Let me know your thoughts. And with that, we arrive at the final part of the trailer. As it pans down on the two characters, we can see the remains of the Mechonis sword and the Titan Uriah in the background as the title fades into the shot. Something interesting is the fact that Uriah almost looks like it was split in half, the head practically falling off to one side. Could this be because of the war, or something else? My guess is pretty important since they made it front and center for the title here. Anyways, that's the end of the trailer. The game is targeted to release in September of this year. I'm sure we'll get to know more information on this game as this year's E3 comes around, but until that time comes, let me know what your thoughts are on the trailer in the comments below, and if there was anything you think I missed. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe for more Xenoblade content, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye.